The day we buried my daughter, I thought the worst thing that could ever happen to me had already happened. Her name was Emily. She was 32 years old, brilliant, stubborn and kinder than anyone I had ever known. She worked as a financial analyst for a large construction company and spent most of her life trying to prove that she could handle everything on her own at the funeral. People kept telling me how sorry they were. She was such a wonderful person. She worked so hard she always made everyone smile. I nodded, thanked them, and tried not to fall apart. But after the service ended and most of the guests had left, a man I barely recognized approached me near the cemetery. He was tall, nervous, and dressed in a dark suit. His eyes kept moving from side to side, as if he expected someone to be watching him. "Mr. Carter," he asked. "Yes, my name is Daniel." I was Emily's supervisor. I remembered Emily mentioning him once or twice. She had said he was demanding but fair still. Something about the way he looked at me made my stomach tighten. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said quietly. "Thank you," he hesitated. Then he leaned closer and whispered words that changed everything. "She's in danger too." I stared at him, who he looked toward the parking lot. "Your other daughter," my heart stopped. I had two daughters. Emily was the oldest. My younger daughter, Sarah, was 28 and had flown home the day Emily died. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Daniel's face turned pale. "I shouldn't have said anything. You came to my daughter's funeral, told me Sarah was in danger, and now you're saying nothing." He stepped back. "Emily found something at work, something she wasn't supposed to see. She tried to protect someone." "Protect who?" He looked directly into my eyes. "Sarah." Before I could ask another question, Daniel turned and walked quickly toward his car. "Wait!" I shouted. But he was already driving away. That night I couldn't sleep. Sarah was staying in Emily's old bedroom. She had cried herself to sleep after telling me she felt guilty for not speaking to Emily more often. I stood outside her door for a long time. Could Daniel have been mistaken? Maybe grief had made me paranoid. Maybe he had been talking about someone else. But one detail kept repeating in my mind. Emily found something and she tried to protect Sarah. The next morning I called Daniel's office. The receptionist told me he had taken an emergency leave. When I asked for his personal number, she refused. That was when I knew something was wrong. I went to Emily's apartment. The police had already returned most of her belongings. After the investigation, they said her death was a tragic accident. Her car had gone off the road during a storm and crashed into a concrete barrier. No other vehicle had been involved. No signs of foul play. Case closed. But Emily hated driving in heavy rain. She always waited for the weather to clear. Why had she been on that road? I searched her apartment for hours. Her clothes were neatly folded. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. A small note on the refrigerator reminded her to call Sarah on Friday. Then I found something strange. Behind a stack of books was a small metal box. Inside were copies of financial reports, several photographs, and a flash drive. One photograph showed Sarah standing outside a restaurant with a man I didn't recognize. On the back, Emily had written, "Sarah doesn't know he's following her." My hands began to shake. There were more photographs. Sarah entering her apartment, Sarah leaving work, Sarah sitting in her car. Someone had been watching her for weeks. I plugged the flash drive into Emily's old laptop. Most of the files were protected by passwords, but one video opened. Emily appeared on the screen. "She looked exhausted. If you're watching this." She said something happened to me. I nearly dropped the computer. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't want to scare you. I found evidence that someone inside my company has been moving money through fake construction projects. Millions of dollars." She paused and looked over her shoulder. "I think they discovered that I copied the records. But the worst part is Sarah." Emily held up the photograph of the unknown man. "He approached Sarah 3 months ago. He pretended to be interested in her. She doesn't know who he really is." My mind raced. Sarah had mentioned dating someone named Michael. She said he was charming and worked in business. Then she suddenly stopped talking about him. I had assumed they broke up. The video continued. "Michael is connected to the company. I think he was using Sarah to get information about me." When I realized that I told him to stay away from her. Emily's voice cracked. "Dad, if anything happens to me, don't trust anyone from my office. Find Daniel. He knows where the original files are." The video ended. I sat in silence. My daughter had known she was in danger and she had tried to warn us. I called Sarah immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing, then I drove home. Her car was gone, her room was empty. On the kitchen table was a note, Dad. I went to meet Michael. He said he knows what happened to Emily. My blood ran cold, I called the police. But they told me Sarah was an adult and had only been gone for a few hours. They advised me to wait. My oldest daughter was dead. My youngest daughter had gone to meet a man connected to a criminal scheme, and they wanted me to wait. I returned to Emily's apartment and searched for Daniel. After several hours, I found his address in an old company directory. His house was dark. I knocked repeatedly. No answer. Then I noticed the back door was slightly open. Inside, the furniture had been overturned. A broken lamp lay on the floor. There was blood near the kitchen counter. I called the police again. While waiting, I saw a piece of paper under the table. It had one sentence written on it: Warehouse 17 midnight. There was no signature. I knew I should have stayed outside and waited for the police. But Sarah was missing, and I had already lost one daughter. I drove to Warehouse 17. The building stood near the edge of the industrial district. At 11:50, I parked across the street. A black SUV arrived. Michael stepped out. Sarah was with him. She looked frightened. Then another man appeared. I recognized him from the photographs. He was the company's chief executive officer, the man Emily had once described as generous and respected. They entered the warehouse. I called the police and gave them the address. Then I followed inside. I heard voices. "You should have stayed out of this," Michael said. Sarah answered. "Emily was my sister. You used me to get close to her. You don't understand what she did. I understand that she died after discovering your crimes." The CEO laughed. "Her death was an accident." I heard Sarah gasp, "You're lying." Then he said something that froze me. Emily had a choice. She could have deleted the files. "So you killed her," she made the decision. I stepped forward. "Then you'll make another one." Everyone turned. Michael grabbed Sarah. The CEO reached into his jacket before anything else happened. Police sirens filled the street. Officers rushed into the warehouse. Michael tried to escape but was caught near the back entrance. The CEO was arrested. Sarah ran toward me. I held her tighter than I had ever held anyone. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. A few hours later, Daniel arrived at the police station. He was injured but alive. He explained that he had helped Emily copy the financial records. When she died, he became afraid. At the funeral, he saw Michael watching Sarah. That was why he warned me, but someone followed him after he left. "They knew I talked to you," he said. "Why didn't you tell me everything?" I was scared. I understood fear makes people hide. But sometimes silence gives danger more power. The investigation lasted months. The company's leaders were charged with fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Evidence showed that Emily had been threatened before the crash. Her death was no accident. She had been forced off the road. When the truth finally became public, people called Emily a whistleblower. They praised her courage, but to me, she was still my daughter. The woman who called every Sunday. The woman who hated thunderstorms. The woman who left reminders on the refrigerator. The woman who knew she might be in danger, but still tried to protect her sister. 1 year later, Sarah and I visited Emily's grave. We placed white flowers beside her headstone. "I keep thinking I should have known," Sarah whispered. "You couldn't have known she died because of me." "No," I said. "She died because dangerous people made terrible choices, but she protected you because she loved you." Sarah cried. I put my arm around her. Then I looked at Emily's name carved into the stone. For months I had believed the funeral was the end of her story. But it wasn't. Her courage had exposed the truth. Her warning had saved Sarah. And even after losing her life, she had protected the people she loved. As we walked away, I remembered Daniel's words. "She's in danger too." At first those words had filled me with fear. But now I understood something else. Sometimes the people we lose leave behind more than memories. They leave clues, they leave courage. They leave unfinished truths that ask us to keep going. Emily was gone, but because she refused to stay silent. Her story did not end on the road where she died. It continued in every truth that was uncovered, in every person who was protected, and in every moment Sarah and I chose to keep living. I still miss my daughter every day. Some pain never disappears, but love does not disappear either, and sometimes even after a funeral. Love finds one final way to save the people left behind.